Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Tamara Daly and I wanted to welcome you to Psychology 222, which is Research Methods in the Psychological Sciences. You've signed up to take the summer session course online. This will be a 12-week course. I decided to do that longer session because the pace of this class, the density of the information, the kind of tasks that I ask you to do are pretty laborious. So we're going to stretch it out across that period of time so that your learning experience will be more high quality. What I'm going to do in this video is just walk you through the syllabus and then give you a brief tour of the D2L page for the class so that you can get yourselves oriented and ready to go when class starts on Monday, the 17th. So first off, I have my contact information. Obviously, this is an asynchronous online course, which means that there are no scheduled lecture times where you will be expected to appear in a virtual classroom for lecture or attendance taking or anything like that. There will be recorded lectures that are embedded into the D2L page for each week that you'll be expected to view. And of course, if you have any questions, you have things you want to talk about, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to your classmates and have those conversations. My campus phone isn't going to be particularly useful to you. In fact, I would say don't call that number. I will not be going to the office during the summer session unless it's just to drop by to pick up mail or grab something I've forgotten in my office. You can contact me via my cell phone. I do ask that you be respectful of that number. Don't expect me to respond to a text message in the middle of the night. If you need to get a hold of me, I certainly understand if it's an emergency or you have a very pressing need to speak with me, feel free to use that number. Otherwise, your communications are more appropriate through email. My Mount Union email is listed right here. There will not be regularly scheduled office hours. There are only 5 of you so far signed up for this class. What I would like you to do is to avail yourselves of something that's a part of the Microsoft Office 365 suite. It's called Bookings. And basically it's attached to My Calendar in Microsoft, and it allows you to select a time that works in my calendar already to have a meeting with me. And the meetings take place via Microsoft Teams. Many of you by now, after our pandemic year, have some experience working with Teams or with Zoom. That's basically how I set up meetings. What I would like each of you to do during the first week of class is to click on this link, go to the bookings page, and set up a meeting with me so that I can meet you, have a chat with you, answer any of your questions about the class and how we're going to conduct it over the course of the 12-week summer session. The course, and most of you know this already, but so I'll go through this very quickly. Psych 222 is a core element of the psychology, neuroscience, and HDFS majors coming out of our program. We expect all of our majors, regardless of which of our 3 programs they're pursuing, to have a solid foundation in research methods and data analysis. So there's both the theory of it as well as the practice of it, and we expect our students to master those elements of being a psychological scientist. Excuse me. Since this is such a core component of our programs, we do have an expectation, and you can see it written right here in the syllabus, and this is the only course we have this kind of requirement for. You have to achieve a C- grade or higher in order to pursue the senior research sequence 400 and 405. So make sure that you put that kind of front and center in your mind. If you start getting behind, if you start to miss quizzes or are thinking, you know what, I just can't handle this class, I'm just going to take the low grade. Well, just remember that if you get below a C minus, you will have to repeat the course. If you get a D, you'll have to repeat the course in order to achieve a higher grade so that you can be permitted to take Psychology 400. Now, students have lots of questions about, why, if I'm pursuing a degree in psychology or human development or neuroscience, why do I have to have research skills? I just want to be a clinician, or I want to be a social worker, or I want to study various aspects of clinical practice. Well, the issue is that everything that psychologists do, even if they are practicing social workers or counselors or clinicians, is based on science, is based on our understanding of how the brain works, how our cognition works, how our emotions work, how our behaviors work. And without research, without those kinds of skills, you really can't understand. Let's say you're a counselor and you need to know what are the practices that work best for a particular set of challenges your client has. You need to be able to look at the research literature and determine which approach might be the most beneficial to your client. Another reason that these courses in research methods and data analysis are so important is because for most of our students, if they want to have careers in as professional psychologists, they are going to have to pursue a graduate degree, either a master's degree or a PhD or a PsyD degree of some kind. The vast majority of these programs have research requirements. And many programs, especially PhD programs, you have to show on your transcripts that you've had a course in research methods and statistics. So we have lots of good reasons for wanting you to take these courses. We require the grade limit that we require because it is essential that you master these skills before you move on in the program. The learning goals for the course are broken down into 6 areas. We do want you to learn how to identify research within particular areas in psychology, neuroscience, and human development. So we seek to teach you, and you've learned some of this in the PSY 120 professional development course. We want you to be well versed in using PsycInfo, APA PsycNet, for example. We also want you to practice and get skills in being able to read research articles, figure out what they're talking about, and be able to write about them intelligently. We want you to learn how to identify the appropriate use of various kinds of research methodologies. Every methodology has strengths and weaknesses. There is no one perfect method. There is no completely crappy method. There are only methods, and they each have strengths and weaknesses. We want you to be able to, and I apologize, I am dog sitting for my daughter and her 2 dogs have just decided to make a whole bunch of noise in the background. Hopefully they'll just go outside. Yep, there they go. Okay, back to course goals. We want you to learn how to design research studies, test hypotheses. We want you to learn the basics of the 3 broad categories of methodologies: descriptive, experimental, and applied. We want you to be able to demonstrate familiarity with and the capacity to follow instructions for conducting descriptive and inferential analyses using specifically SPSS. Now, there's a reason why we still expect students to use SPSS. There are other programs out there that are less expensive, but also somewhat less powerful. Most graduate programs still require that you use while you are in them, doing your master's thesis, doing your PhD, that you use SPSS, the statistical package for the social sciences, in order to conduct your analyses. So we want our students to have the advantage of having had hands-on experience manipulating data, testing hypotheses, and then presenting data. Finally, and again, this connects up to the fact that the majority of our students do go on to pursue graduate education. You need to be able to produce written work in APA publication style. Now, for students, they often tell me this is one of the most irritating and annoying things that they have to do as a student, which is follow the rules and guidelines, which are often, just really complicated and weird and nonsensical in some ways. Like, what gets italicized and where do the periods go, and why do you use a colon here and a period somewhere else? I don't know. But they're rules, and it's a part of the culture of psychological science that we had chosen as a field to use a common publication style and a common structure for research papers that we write. So you'll be working on that here. Now again, you should have some familiarity with this from PSY 120, the professional development course. You will be doing more of it in a more intensive way in this class. Now I'll let you read the connections to our departmental learning goals on your own. They are printed in the syllabus for you. I'm going to jump ahead to talk about technological requirements now, because they are very, very important. In addition to you needing to be able to access D2L to find your work, to find links to all of the video lectures, to find links to the video tutorials that I have recorded. In addition to that, and you know already, having survived, some online courses already and worked with them over the course of the last year, you need to use D2L, and you need to use it every day of your course. In this class in particular, you also need to be able to access SPSS. Now, if you're on campus, if you happen to be on campus, you can go into the computer labs on campus in various locations and access SPSS directly through any of those computers. If you are not on the Mount Union campus, you're going to need to use the Mount Union VPN, which means you're getting access to the official network of Mount Union through a virtual private network is what it's called. And that gives you access to proprietary software like SPSS that Mount Union has a license to use. The second part of that is, once you have access to the VPN, you need to be able to get to SPSS. And the access to that is through something called a virtual lab. And there, I'll go over when we get onto the D2L page exactly where all of these instructions are and how to use them. Again, if you're on campus, go to a lab. If you are off campus, make sure that you get access, number one, to the VPN, number two, to the virtual lab space, because that is where SPSS is accessible to students who are off campus. In order to have meetings with me that are video meetings, which we can have meetings by phone as well if you don't have a web camera, but for remote learning, it's often helpful to be able to look into someone's eyes, even if you're not in the same space physically, so that you can talk through. If I can see that someone is confused, that they're struggling, it's faster for me to figure out how to solve their problems. You will be expected, and I say this in all of my classes, you will be expected to use Microsoft Word. I do not accept work coming from Google word processor. Documents produced in that way, the formatting is often really problematic. Google Docs doesn't do well with uploads to D2L. And often, no matter how hard you work on your formatting in the Google space, what happens is in the download and upload process, that formatting gets completely blown up. So I do require, and this is a part of your tuition, this is a part of your fees. You have access to Microsoft Office 365. You don't really have an excuse for not using Word in its official form. So I do not permit you to turn in Google-produced documents for your work in this class. So just make a note of that. You will want to be in the habit, and this is for all of your classes regardless, you need to store your work in a non-local environment. So, I've had, lots of students over my long career who have, saved things sort of on their local hard drive, on their laptop, on their desktop, and then that machine dies a horrible, sad death, and they lose all their work. You need to use what you have. Again, you have paid for access to Office 365. You have a OneDrive account, save your work. If you don't want to use OneDrive, use a Google Drive or use Dropbox or something else. Or if you really want to stay off the grid, dump it onto a USB drive so that you keep your work safe. Now, I've mentioned needing to be able to access SPSS, and I'll touch back on this again when we get onto the D2L page. Here's a link embedded in your syllabus to access the application if you haven't completed it already over the course of the pandemic year, for you to fill out the form to get access to the virtual private network, the VPN. So that's step one of being able to get to SPSS if you are off campus. And then you need to connect to what's called Zero Client, and that's how you get to the virtual labs. So there's a link here instructing you how to access the Zero Client lab. And I will tell you, using the Zero Client virtual lab, it can be confusing, it can be clunky. Basically, it produces on your, visible on your laptop screen or your desktop screen, what looks like, a second desktop space on your screen. And what you need to do is, identify, get some familiarity with it, mess with it a little bit, and you'll be able to pull up SPSS through that space. If you run into any problems with that as we get started working on labs where you're learning SPSS and how to use it, if you get stuck, contact me. We'll set up a Teams meeting and I can walk you through the process from my end. Okay, materials that you need to have for the class. We have a research methods textbook. It's very basic, very straightforward, very readable. The Shaughnessy, Zeigmeister, and Zeigmeister text. This is the 10th edition. You can get it through the university store. You can also get it on Amazon. You can get it on VitalSource in an ebook. You will need that for the entirety of the 12-week session. There will be lectures from this text that are video recorded each week, and you will have a quiz on each chapter. It's an online quiz that you take through D2L. The second text is Julie Pallen's SPSS Survival Manual. The 7th edition is the edition that I'm requiring. Now, this one can be, goodness, I've spelled McGraw wrong. It's McGraw-Hill, not McGraw. That's always embarrassing when you're recording and you find a typo. Anyway, the Pallen book, what it does is, in a very easy, step-by-step way, just holds your hand and pats your head and teaches you how to do SPSS. And gives you the reasons for why, and also gives you tutorials for how to write about your results. You know, I've put here in all shouty capitals, you should, I recommend that you buy a physical copy of this book, or if you get the ebook, that you buy permanent access to that ebook, because you will need access to this book when you do PSY 400 and 405 for your senior research. We will expect, and I'm an instructor for that class too, we will expect when you get to the point where you're selecting methodologies for doing data analysis, that you have access to this book. And that when you sit down to do your data analyses, we're not going to tell you necessarily every step how to do it until you've shown us that you've looked at the Poundland text. So you will be required to use it, to access it, to have it. Now, getting access to a physical copy of the book, I will tell you, my students from the past year, they had very bad luck going through the bookstore or the university store. They had much better luck if they just ordered it straight from Amazon or Barnes & Noble. There's some weirdness into the publication of this particular text. They appear to still be ironing out some connections between McGraw-Hill in the United States and the Open University Press, which originates in the United Kingdom. I have had no problems whatsoever with students getting the book through Amazon and getting it quickly. I've also had no problems with students accessing it through VitalSource, which is, you know, an online ebook resource for accessing and reading ebooks. Where they've had trouble is with the university store, which has to negotiate direct with publishers, like straight with McGraw-Hill. And what McGraw-Hill is often told the university store is that they don't have access to the book, or it's going to be very long delayed, and that there's shipping issues from the UK. Well, clearly Amazon isn't having that problem, and the ebook is in fact available. If you look at the university store, it will say no ebook available. That's, I don't know why it says that, because it's simply not true. You can get the ebook version from various vendors. So make sure you use it. Now, you should be aware that the language that Poundland uses will sometimes be a little odd, at least for our American eyes. Julie Poundland is Australian, and therefore there are some odd cultural quirks, like how you spell behavior. It has a U in it, and we don't do that. And instead of saying something has a period at the end, you say full stop. Or primary school instead of elementary school. But, you know, you probably have been watching a lot of Netflix and stuff. I'm sure you've listened to some Australian people before, so you'll get used to it. All right. How our work is sort of divvied up, and I really like things simple, and you'll find that I have a really intense desire for symmetry. There is homework associated with the Poundland SPSS book. That's a 25% of your grade. There are quizzes over the research methods textbook. Every chapter has a quiz. That's 25% of your grade. And then there's this whole zone called the semester project. Notice that combined, that's 50% of your grade. So the lab work that we do is divvied up into learning how to use SPSS to ask questions and answer them, and then putting that experience into practice using an already existing data set. You will not be expected to collect your own data. We don't have that kind of time or access in an online environment. But what you're going to do is kind of go through the motions of having collected a set of data. The data will be provided for you. And then writing about it, you know, making some decisions about hypotheses, testing those hypotheses, generating the results, making sense of those results, and then writing it up. There will be a separate video that you can watch that already describes the semester project in great detail, so I'm not going go into it a whole lot here, but I do give you a brief description here. We want you to have a kind of start to finish with the only thing missing, the actual collection of your personal data, as if you were doing your own project. You'll get to do that in 400 and 405. So here, you're going to go through the experience, through the research process, to get some practice. We're going to use data sets that are provided by the Pallant text. There are several of them. You'll use them in your Pallant homework as well. But we're going to, take one of these data sets and then kind of dig into it in order to get practice, learn how to form hypotheses, how to find research literature to support an argument, how to test hypotheses using SPSS, and then writing them up in an APA-style report. There will be worksheets that are associated with every single step of the process. Each one is graded. Then there's a final semester project research report that you write up at the end of the 12-week session. For each of the Shaughnessy chapters, there's a 20-item quiz. The assumption is that you are doing these quizzes closed book, meaning not sitting there with your book open. I am not going to take the step of doing the lockdown browser. I find it cumbersome, and for many students, it's just an unnecessary source of stress. What's most important to me is that you master the material. So for each of the chapters in Shaughnessy, there's a mastery quiz. So you'll get a random set of 20 items coming straight from a test bank. I admit that. You have an hour to work on your quiz. You can make up to 3 attempts. And each attempt, it will be a new random sampling of questions. So you'll have some questions that are the same and some that are different. Basically, the highest score of your 3 attempts will be recorded. The Pallant homework, excuse me, won't start the first week, but we'll get moving pretty quickly because we do only have 12 weeks to do this work. There will be a total of 18 of these homework assignments. They're short. Most students, the last time I taught this class, were able to finish each one of their homework assignments in 20 minutes or less, not including getting access to SPSS and making sure you find the right files and all of that stuff. We'll talk more about the Pallant homework when we get started doing it. And that'll be one of my topics of conversation in my individual meetings with you that I want you to set up during the first week. Given that we have only 12 weeks to do our work in this course, and it's very doable. I'm not cramming things together. I actually had to teach this class during the pandemic in a shorter time frame, so I'm accustomed to it. It's designed for that time frame, and I made adjustments to the summer schedule and the content so that it would fit doably in that zone. Given the nature of this short time frame, though, it is really, really critically important that you not get behind. So I do have a late work policy. You need to look at that and make sure that you keep it in mind. One more reminder, you get below a 70%, you will have to retake the class. So I'm not going to say it again. That's enough of that. I do have a statement here on course flexibility. You'll see this in a lot of your professors' syllabi these days since a year ago. There may be situations that arise, things that happen where I need to change things, move things around, make some adjustments to maybe deadlines. I typically don't do that. I try to think ahead, and this is a course that I've taught before in a completely online format, so I am not anticipating needing to move anything. If I do have to make some change for whatever reason, you will be contacted through email. Do recognize the only way I have available to me of contacting you is your Mount Union email. I don't have any other form of contact for you. So it is essential that you check your email. If I email through D2L, it goes to your Mount Union email anyway. So make sure that you do that. All right, the remainder of the content of the syllabus is kind of the usual statements that we make in syllabi about computers and classroom conduct. Obviously, this is an online asynchronous class, so some of that does not apply. The next thing in the syllabus is the schedule, and I've tried to color code things so that anything connected to Shaughnessy, your research methods textbook is blue, anything associated with your Pallant textbook, the SPSS guidebook, is purple, and anything connected to the semester project is yellow. Just so that you can associate those colors with work that is due there. So week 1, you have assigned reading chapter 1 in Shaughnessy, watching the video lecture associated with it, and taking your quiz. Now what you'll notice is each week, it's a week that starts on a Monday, ends on a Sunday. Deadlines are always going to be on that Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So whatever work, whether it's a quiz or a Pallant homework or a worksheet for the semester project, the due date is always going to be Sunday night. So you can just kind of pound that into your head. That's when your deadlines are. And you should use this schedule as well as kind of some of the built-in reminders that are connected to the D2L page, and that will help you to keep on track and do what you need to do. So week 1, the only thing that you have to accomplish during that week is watch the first video lecture, read the first chapter, and take chapter 1's quiz for Shaughnessy. I will also ask you that first week, set up a Teams appointment, a booking appointment with me so that we can have just to get to know you, and I can answer any of your questions and kind of give you a one-on-one prep for the remainder of the summer session. Week 2, you're going to add to, and every week there's going to be a Shaughnessy chapter and a quiz. Starting week 2, we're going to add the Pallant homeworks. So you'll be reading your first chapter in the Pallant text. You'll notice these chapters are very short, and then you will be doing your homework associated with that chapter. Starting week 3, we add one more thing. So we're kind of scaling things up as we move through the first 3 weeks of our 12-week course. There will be an introductory lecture for the semester project. There'll be a video lecture that you can watch. And then a very short worksheet where you'll be selecting what variables you want to play with for your semester project. And after you watch the video, doing the worksheet will make much more sense. So before you pull up the worksheet, don't wait until Sunday at 10 p.m. where you're like, I need to do a quiz and I need to do Pallant homework and I need to do this worksheet. You have the week. Try not putting it off. You need to watch the lectures and use them to do your homework. You'll start to notice that, as we move through the 12 weeks, you've got your Shaughnessy chapter, your Shaughnessy quiz, Pallant homework. Since the chapters are short, they typically are in pairs. So starting week 4, you're going to have 2 chapters in Pallant, 2 Pallant homeworks, and then a worksheet for the semester project. And each week is going to pretty much look the same from that point on. You have a Shaughnessy chapter and a quiz, 2 chapters in Pallant, 2 Pallant homeworks, and a semester project worksheet that are due. Now, what I try to do each week, things come into me, starting week 2, the Pallant homeworks, they're actually in the quiz space on D2L, so that you put in your responses, and then I have to manually grade it. It's not going to give you a grade right away. The computer is not grading it. I have to go in and grade it and give you feedback directly. So my goal is always, you turn in your stuff Sunday night. I spend Monday, Tuesday grading. You should have your feedback on anything that you turn in, especially given there's only 5 of you. You should have feedback no later than Wednesday, end of day. That's my goal anyhow. So as we move through the 12-week session, you see that the same kind of pattern just keeps moving forward until we get to week 11. That's where you'll be doing your last Pallant homeworks. So by week 11, you'll be done, by the end of week 11, you'll be done with Pallant homeworks. And you'll be putting your first draft of your final semester project research report together. The last couple of weeks, I've been mentioning this is like 12-week. That's because it's 12 weeks of content. So the last week, what we have is one more chapter in Shaughnessy, which will completely be review because you will have already been practicing how to use APA style and write a research report for several weeks at that point. And then you'll be turning in your final revision of your semester project research report at the end. As it states here, there's no comprehensive final exam. The final deadline is simply for your revision of your research report. Now the remainder here of the syllabus is a standard kind of set of statements about various offices that you have access to on campus to meet your various needs. Now we're going to jump over to the D2L page, and I have made it accessible. I will be uploading, after this recording is finished, I will be uploading this recording to D2L. That's probably where you will find a link to it. I will also have a link to it in your email, which may be the other place where you find the link to this particular orientation video. For most of you, you are very familiar with D2L, so I'll try to make this quick, but each of us as faculty, we organize our classes just a little bit differently. So it's important that you get familiar with what's where on your particular D2L page. The last thing I want is for you to get stressed out about not being able to find stuff that you need. So this is the landing page. I have my contact information. I also have the link here that's live for you to go to my bookings page and make an appointment with me. Again, I think I've said this like 3 times. I want you each to make an appointment with me the first week of the summer session so we can just have a get to know you, sit down, make sure that all of your questions are answered. And there's my beloved puppy, Asta. The content page is probably where you're going to spend most of your time. So the first page here is, and again, we've adopted, as Mount Union, we've adopted some standard kind of components that we hope faculty are including in their D2L pages for their courses, where you have a number of resources that are readily available at your fingertips. So the first is a welcome page. I don't know why it's not loading. Oh, there it is. And of course. Okay. So the first is a welcome page. I have a little bit of information about my bio and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of new information there, but feel free to read it. Now this little button right here, if you haven't noticed this when you're working on content pages on D2L before, it's really handy. The next page is some things that are also included in the syllabus, all things that I've already gone over, the course description and the learning goals. The next spot is where you can click on this and you can download the syllabus. So I encourage you to do that as soon as possible. I have included here 4 textbooks. I have included the Vital Source ebook link for the Shaughnessy book, an Amazon link, the Vital Source ebook link for Pallant, and an Amazon link for the Pallant text for your convenience. You may or may not be aware that in the last year and a half, the APA has launched a new 7th edition of the APA manual. We are not requiring that you purchase it, primarily because there are so many good online resources available to you for learning how to use APA style and how to master it. And I should qualify that master it. After all over 30 years of being an academic psychologist, I still sit down when I have to write a paper and do references and format a table and do all of the little picky things about APA style. I use my manual, and I use it all the time. So what I provided to you here are either Word documents or mostly PDFs of resources for you to use, and I expect you to use them. If you make mistakes like formatting a reference and the information for correcting it is in one of these handouts, I'm going to expect you to go look at them. I may make a comment saying, look this up and do it right, please. I will try to shape you, encourage you to look things up on your own so that you're more independent with those things. The remaining topic pages here, the one that's the most important from my point of view is the technology one. Here, anytime there's many things that I can help you with, but if it comes down to like your computer won't hook to the VPN, I'm utterly useless. There you will have to contact the help desk for those kinds of issues. So you can reach them by phone, you can reach them by email. Here are the instructions for the VPN access. Sorry, barking dogs. You should review the policies. And then if you do not already have access to the VPN, you click on this link and that's where you can fill out the form and request access. Typically, if you don't hear back within a few days, you should email or call IT and see where you stand with that. There's additional documentation to explain step by step what you need to do in order to get your VPN set up. It does involve a piece of software that you use. Like on my computer, I have this little globe right here. Right now it has a big red X on it because I'm not connected to the VPN at the moment. But that's how I get access to it. Remember that when you're accessing SPSS, there's 2 steps. If you're off campus, you get on the VPN, and then you have to access through Zero Client the virtual lab. And this link takes you to the instructions for doing that. Okay? Again, any problems, any questions, you can contact me or contact IT. Okay. Now the next module here is for the semester project, and it's very busy. There's a lot of information on this page. It starts with a description, and since there is a video lecture to describe this in more detail, I'm not going to go through all of it at this point in time. I have the goals and expectations for it, and then a set of tasks. There are a lot of them, and I know it looks utterly overwhelming to look at a list like that right now, but each week you'll be doing a worksheet, which is just a step along the way for successfully completing the semester project. So what I'll ask you to do, and these are some research articles that you can use as a part of your semester project. I've also done demos of showing how I would deal with some of the worksheets. And then I have this video, this first video is the overview of the semester project, where I kind of walk you through exactly what you're going to be expected to do and what's the point of the whole exercise. And then there are also some walkthroughs for the elements of some of the later worksheets that we'll be running into. So if there's a point in time where I say, where I note in a weekly module, go to the semester project module to find this tutorial or this demo, this is the place where you'll be going. Now, most of the time I have put a link in those weekly modules to the semester project module itself so that you know where to find everything. So if you ever have a question where you need to find information about the semester project, the module is where you need to go. Now, each week, the way the D2L page is laid out, each week has an overview of what we're learning, what we're working on, and a set of goals. Most weeks are going to have research methods learning goals, as well as data analysis learning goals. Week 1, we're starting slow, just research methods. And then I lay out for you each task that needs to be done. So the first week, in addition to, and I should add this to the module, set up a Teams meeting with me, take a tour, get around the D2L page. I would like you to make sure you read the syllabus, watch this introductory lecture, which you're already doing right now, and if you have questions, you can put them in the discussion forum or you can ask me in our one-on-one. You're going to read chapter 1. I do provide you with the notes version. I will, full disclosure, I did not feel it was necessary for me to re-record lectures for Shaughnessy. So these are the lectures I originally recorded for the fall semester of 2020. And then you need to take the quiz. And you can click on that link, it'll take you straight to the quiz. So I've got the first video lecture is right there. And each week is going to look very much the same. So I'm going to skip ahead here to a week that has the full complement of things you're expected to do. So here you've got research methods goals, data analysis goals, and we're starting the semester project worksheets during week 3 as well. I need to correct this. If you see anywhere where I have said something about perusal, please ignore it. I'm noticing here that I have missed a week where I should have taken that content out. Just if you see the word perusal, just ignore it. We're not doing perusal with this class for a summer session. So you're going to read chapter 3, you're going to watch the video lecture, you're going to take the quiz, you're going to do your Palette homework. Clicking the word homework here is going to take you, it'll look like a quiz, but it's just where your homework is housed and where I will grade it. And I've also provided you with PDF copies of the homework because students have told me that it's easier if they can look at it either on a screen or print it out to help them. Week 3, I want you to watch the semester project module video and do the first worksheet and then upload it to the Dropbox. Notice that there are links for everything. My goal has been to make things as straightforward and easy as possible for you. There will be quirky little things like me forgetting to remove a reference to perusal, like right here. I apologize. Hopefully I've gotten those on the remainder of the module pages. So that's basically how the D2L page is laid out. There, and you're familiar with this, you can go directly to, say, where the quizzes are. All the Shaughnessy quizzes are laid out with their deadlines and also all of the palette homework is laid out in the quiz section as well, and you can see those here. Everything, the Shaughnessy quizzes, you have 3 attempts. The palette homeworks, if you get less than a perfect score, you can go back, do it again, and I grade the 2nd attempt, I grade the 3rd attempt. My goal is always for you to, by getting feedback, learn how to do things more effectively. So make sure that you're aware that you can do things more than once to get full credit. We will only have 1 discussion forum. It's not graded, and this is where you can post questions about the class, and you can maybe introduce yourself to your classmates. Just use it for that purpose. It's not graded, but you're welcome to post questions there. Your grades will show up. I'm not sure what grades looks like on your version, but this is where you would be keeping track of your work is in that space. So that is the layout of the D2L page, and I'm going to stop here. Do remember, I would like you to set up a Teams appointment with me through bookings. Again, here's the link to my bookings page, and I'll also put it in an email to you as soon as I get done with my recording here today.